Chosen one. Listen carefully, because this message is not random and it is not for everyone. It is for the one who kept going when nobody was watching, for the one who stayed silent while being misunderstood, for the one who chose integrity even when compromise would have been easier, for the one who showed up again and again when quitting would have made sense to the world but not to your spirit, because God saw everything you did, not just the public moments, not just the victories people applauded, but the private sacrifices, the quiet tears, the late nights, the early mornings, the prayers you whispered when you were too tired to speak out loud, the strength you had to borrow just to make it through another day. And I need you to understand this clearly. None of it was wasted. None of it was ignored. None of it slipped past heaven unnoticed. There were seasons when you felt invisible, when you questioned whether obedience was worth it, when you watched others take shortcuts and still seemed to get ahead, when you did things the right way and still ended up waiting longer than you expected. And in those moments, you wondered if God had forgotten you. But the truth is, God was watching you more closely than ever. He was measuring your heart. He was shaping your character. He was building something in you that success alone could never produce, because the blessing he is about to release cannot rest on a shallow foundation. It requires depth. It requires endurance. It requires a spirit that has been tested and proven. You kept loving when it was not returned. You kept giving when you were drained. You kept believing when logic said give up. And heaven took notes. God recorded every act of faith, every time you chose patience over reaction, every time you walked away instead of retaliating, every time you trusted him instead of forcing your own outcome. And what people called weakness, God called strength. What people called delay, God called preparation. What people called loss, God called alignment. There were doors that closed that broke your heart, relationships that ended without explanation, opportunities that disappeared right when you thought your breakthrough had arrived. And you did not realize it at the time, but God was protecting you, because had those doors stayed open, they would have led you away from the very blessing you're now being positioned to receive. Sometimes God allows disappointment not to punish you, but to redirect you. Sometimes he removes what you want because it would interfere with what you truly need. And even when you did not understand it, you still trusted him enough to keep moving forward. Even when your faith felt fragile, you still held on, and that matters more than you know. God saw you choosing discipline over distraction, purpose over popularity, obedience over applause. He saw the moments when nobody clapped for you, when nobody encouraged you, when you had to encourage yourself just to survive the season you were in. And he saw how you did not become bitter. You did not allow resentment to harden your heart. You did not let pain turn you into someone you were never meant to be. Instead, you grew wiser, stronger, more grounded. And that growth is what qualifies you for what is coming next. You are about to step into a season where things start happening faster than you expect, where doors open that no amount of networking could have forced, where favor speaks your name in rooms you have never entered, where resources show up at the exact moment you need them, not early, not late, but right on time. And when it happens, people will call it luck. They will say you are fortunate. They will assume it was easy for you, but they will not see the years of consistency, the obedience when it was inconvenient, the faith when it was uncomfortable, the loyalty. It cost you something. God saw all of that, and he is not unjust. He does not forget faithfulness. There were times you could have compromised your values and gained quicker results. Times you could have said what people wanted to hear instead of what was true. Times you could have blended in instead of standing out. And you chose the harder path, not because it felt good, but because it was right. And heaven honors that kind of obedience, because obedience is proof of trust. It says, God, I believe you even when I do not see the outcome yet. And that level of trust activates a different kind of blessing, not just material increase, but peace, clarity, authority, and alignment. God is not just about to bless you with things. He is about to bless you with position, with influence, with responsibility, with a platform that requires maturity, and that is why the process took time. Because premature promotion can destroy someone who is not ready to carry it, and God cares too much about you to elevate you before your character can sustain the elevation. What he is releasing now will not crush you, it will fit you, because you have been shaped for it. Think about how many times you almost gave up, how many moments you stood at the edge of quitting, how many nights you questioned whether continuing was worth the pain, and yet something inside you would not let go. That was not stubbornness, that was purpose. That was the calling pulling you forward even when your strength was low. And God saw that too. He saw you choose endurance over escape, faith over fear, obedience over ease. There are blessings that only come after endurance, rewards that only follow persistence, doors that only open for those who refuse to stop knocking, and you kept knocking even when the silence was loud. even when the waiting was heavy, even when the delay tested your patience, and now you are standing at the edge of a shift, a moment where the season changes, where what once felt stuck begins to move, where what once felt silent begins to speak, where what once felt impossible becomes inevitable. God is about to restore things you thought were lost forever. Not always in the same form, but in a way that brings more peace and alignment than before. He's about to redeem time, to accelerate progress, to compress seasons so that what should have taken years begins to happen in months. And this acceleration is not random. It is a response to your faithfulness, to your consistency, to your willingness to stay true when it would have been easier to walk away. Do not be surprised when people from your past reappear, when old doors knock again, when familiar voices suddenly want access to the new version of you. Discernment will be critical in this season because not everyone who knew you before is meant to walk with you now. God has refined you, elevated you, strengthened you, and you cannot afford to carry old weights into a new season. The blessing ahead requires space, focus, and clarity. You will notice that your tolerance for chaos is lower. Your appetite for shallow connections is gone. Your desire for purpose is stronger than your desire for approval. That is not arrogance. That is growth. That is alignment. That is the result of everything you have walked through. And God saw the transformation happening. Even when you did not, He saw you shedding old habits, old mindsets, old limitations, and stepping into a version of yourself that is more grounded, more aware, more intentional. There is a confidence rising in you that does not come from ego, but from experience. You know what it costs to keep going. You know what it takes to survive adversity. You know the value of patience, and that confidence will serve you well in the next season because the blessing God is releasing will attract attention, responsibility, and expectation, and you are ready for it in a way you were not before. You may not feel fully prepared, and that is okay because readiness is not about having all the answers. It is about having the humility to learn and the faith to move. God does not wait for perfection. He responds to availability, and you have made yourself available through obedience, through persistence, through trust, and now heaven is responding. Pay attention to the confirmations around you, the subtle shifts, the unexpected opportunities, the conversations that open doors, the ideas that come with clarity and peace. These are not coincidences, they are signals. Reminders that the season is changing, that momentum is building, that what you have been praying for is aligning behind the scenes. You are not late, you are not behind, you are not forgotten, you are right on schedule. And when the blessing manifests, it will make sense why it could not have happened sooner, why the delay was necessary, why the process mattered, because you will be able to handle without losing yourself, without compromising your values, without sacrificing your peace. God saw everything you did when nobody else did, and He is about to bless you in ways that reflect not just what you asked for, but who you became along the way. And as you step forward into this next chapter, stay grounded, stay grateful, stay obedient, because the same faith that carried you through the waiting will be the faith that sustains you in the increase. And what is unfolding now is only the beginning of a larger story that is still being written, a story where your obedience continues to unlock doors, where your consistency continues to produce fruit, and where your journey becomes a testimony that speaks even when you are not trying to be heard, because the path ahead is opening in ways you are just starting to perceive, and the momentum that is building now is connected to decisions you have yet to make and steps you are about to take as the next phase begins to reveal itself, and you realize that this blessing is not just arriving to reward you, but to position you for what comes. Next, as you move forward with clarity and faith into what is unfolding now, and as you move forward, you will begin to notice that your perspective has changed. Things that once felt urgent no longer control you. Distractions that once pulled at your attention no longer have the same power because something deeper has settled inside you. A quiet certainty that you are being guided, that your steps are ordered even when the path ahead is not fully visible. And this certainty did not come overnight. It was formed in the waiting, strengthened in the uncertainty, refined in the moments when faith was your only option. There were days when obedience felt lonely, when doing the right thing isolated you from people who did not understand your restraint, your patience, your discipline, and you wondered if you were missing out, but now you see that what you were actually doing was making room for clarity, room for peace, room for alignment, because the blessing God is preparing does not thrive in chaos. It requires a focused mind and a settled spirit, and you have been learning how to quiet the noise without even realizing it. You have been through enough to know that not every opportunity is a blessing and not every delay is a setback. You have learned discernment through experience, wisdom through loss, strength through endurance, and that wisdom will now protect what God places in your hands, because increase without wisdom leads to overwhelm, but increase with wisdom leads impact. And impact is what this next season is about. There is a weightiness to what is coming, not a burden, but a responsibility, a calling that stretches you beyond comfort, but not beyond capacity. And you may feel moments of hesitation as you step into it, not because you are unqualified, but because you understand the seriousness of it. You know that what God entrusts to you now will influence others, shape environments, open pathways, and that awareness is evidence of maturity, not fear. You will begin to see patterns break that once seemed permanent, cycles that repeated for years, suddenly losing their grip, limitations that once defined your reality no longer holding authority over your future. And this is not coincidence, it is the result of alignment. When your actions, your mindset, and your faith come into agreement with purpose, momentum follows naturally. There will be moments when you look back and hardly recognize the version of yourself who started this journey, the one who doubted more, feared more, questioned more, and instead of shame, you will feel gratitude. Gratitude for growth, for resilience, for the lessons that shaped you without destroying you. Because not everything that hurts you was meant to break you. Some things were meant to build you in ways comfort never could. As the blessing unfolds, humility will be your anchor, because humility keeps you teachable, keeps you grounded, keeps you connected to the source, and God elevates those who remain who ambly under pressure, those who remember where they came from even as they move forward, those who understand that favor is not entitlement but stewardship. You may notice that your prayers begin to change there, less about survival and more about purpose, less about escape and more about direction, because you are no longer just trying to get through, you are preparing to lead, to build, to influence, and that shift in prayer reveals a shift in identity. You are stepping out of merely enduring and into becoming. People will start to notice something different about you, not because you announce it, but because presence speaks louder than words. There will be a calm in you, a confidence without arrogance, a clarity without force, and that presence will open doors before you even realize they are opening, because favor often works quietly, aligning people and opportunities without noise. There will be moments of testing even in the blessing, not to harm you, but to strengthen your stewardship. Because every level comes with new challenges, new decisions, new pressures, and the same God who walked with you in the valley will guide you on the mountain. You are not moving into this season alone. You never have been. Pay attention to the nudges, the inner promptings, the moments when you feel a clear sense of direction without a full explanation. Those nudges are familiar because they have guided you before. They led you away from things that would have delayed you. They led you to outward growth even when it was uncomfortable. They will continue to guide you now. You will realize that timing is one of the greatest forms of mercy, that what you once prayed for would have overwhelmed you if it had arrived earlier, and that what is arriving now fits the strength you have developed, the wisdom you have gained, the discernment you have earned, and this realization will deepen your trust. Because you see now that God's delays were never denials, they were designs. As the season shifts, there may be moments of grief for what you were leaving behind, familiar routines, familiar roles, familiar versions of yourself, and that grief is natural. Growth often requires release, and release can be bittersweet, but do not cling to what was meant to prepare you when you are being invited into what is meant to expand you. Your voice will carry more weight now. Your decisions will have greater impact, and your words will influence outcomes in ways you may not immediately recognize. And with that influence comes responsibility to speak with wisdom, to act with integrity, to remain aligned even when pressure tries to pull you off course. You will find that peace becomes a greater priority than proving yourself, that alignment matters more than approval, that obedience matters more than applause, and this priority shift will protect you because the blessing you are entering requires sustainability, not just momentum, and peace is what sustains progress over time. There will be opportunities to rush, to push, to force outcomes. But remember how far patience has carried you. Remember how much clarity waiting produced. Remember how obedience positions you for what is unfolding now. And let that memory guide your choices as you move forward. God is not just responding to what you did. He is responding to who you became, to the resilience that formed when you refused to quit, to the character that developed when you chose truth over convenience, to the faith that deepened when you trusted him without guarantees. And that kind of growth creates a foundation that cannot easily be shaken. You may encounter resistance from those who are uncomfortable with your growth, not because you have done anything wrong, but because your progress reminds them of places they have chosen not to confront. And this resistance is not a sign to retreat. It is confirmation that you are moving forward. Stay compassionate, but stay focused. There will be moments when you feel stretched beyond familiarity, asked to step into spaces you once felt unqualified for. And in those moments, remember that calling often precedes confidence, that readiness grows through obedience, not before it, and that every step you take in faith strengthens your capacity to carry what follows. You will begin to understand that blessing is not always about addition. Sometimes it is about clarity, Sometimes it is about access. Sometimes it is about peace. Sometimes it is about alignment. And often it is about responsibility. And God trusts you with this responsibility because he knows your heart. He has watched how you handled less. The discipline you developed in hidden seasons will now support you in visible ones. The boundaries you learned to set will now protect your energy. The discernment you gain will now guide your decisions, and the faith you practiced will now sustain your momentum. There will be moments of awe when you realize how many details had to align for you to be where you are. How many redirections, delays, and closed doors quietly work together to bring you here. And in those moments, gratitude will rise naturally, not forced, not performative, but deep and grounding. As you continue forward, keep honoring the process even when the pace increases, because speed without awareness can lead to missteps, and you have learned the value of intentional movement. Let that wisdom remain with you. You will notice that your inner dialogue has changed. Where doubt once spoke loudly, trust now answers calmly. Where fear once dominated, discernment now responds with clarity. And this shift is evidence of healing, growth, and alignment. There will still be unknowns ahead, still questions without immediate answers, still steps that require faith. But now you know how to walk without seeing the entire path. You have done it before, and that experience has prepared you for what lies ahead. God saw everything you did in the waiting, in the obedience, in the silence, in the perseverance. And as the blessing continues to unfold, you will begin to realize that this season is not just about arrival, but about continuation, about building on what has been established, about moving forward with intention and trust as new layers of purpose reveal themselves, and the path continues to open step by step and moment by moment without rushing toward an ending, but unfolding steadily as you keep walking into what is next. And as you keep walking, you will notice that your capacity has expanded. Not just your ability to do more, but your ability to carry more without losing yourself, without collapsing under pressure, without becoming hardened by responsibility, because capacity is not built through ease, it is built through endurance. And you have endured quietly for longer than most people realize. There were lessons you learned that could not have been taught any other way. Lessons about restraint, about timing, about silence, about choosing wisdom over reaction. And those lessons are now becoming tools. Tools you will use instinctively as you navigate this next season. Tools that will protect your peace and sharpen your judgment. You will begin to sense when to move and when to wait, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to invest and when to step back. And this discernment will save you from unnecessary battles, because not every fight is yours to engage and not every door is yours to walk through. Even if it appears attractive on the surface, there will be moments when opportunities present themselves that look good but do not feel right. And that inner pause you feel is wisdom. It is the result of alignment, because you no longer move based on pressure, you move based on peace. And peace has become one of your greatest indicators. You will realize that the version of you who once needed validation no longer exists, not because you stopped caring, but because you stopped needing permission on to be who you are becoming. And that freedom will change how you show up in rooms, how you speak, how you decide, how you lead. People may project expectations onto you, assumptions about what you should do next, how fast you should move, what success should look like. But you have learned that fulfillment does not come from meeting external expectations. It comes from alignment with purpose, and you will choose alignment even when it confuses others. You will notice that your energy has become more selective. You no longer pour into places that drain you without return. You no longer chase connections that lack depth. You no longer explain yourself to those who are committed to misunderstanding you. And this selectivity is not selfish, it is stewardship. God is teaching you how to protect what he is giving you, because blessing without boundaries becomes a burden, and boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They ensure that what enters your life contributes rather than consumes. As things begin to align externally, there will also be internal refinement. Moments where old fears resurface briefly, not to reclaim control, but to be fully released. And you may find yourself facing echoes of past insecurity, but this time with strength, clarity, and compassion for who you once were. You will no longer judge yourself for those earlier seasons. You will honor them, because without them, you would not have the depth you now carry. You would not have the patience you now practice. You would not have the wisdom you now apply effortlessly. There is a grace forming in how you move, not rushed, not hesitant, but steady, intentional, and grounded. And this grace will attract the right people, the right conversations, the right opportunities, because alignment recognizes alignment. You may be surprised by how some things come easily now that once felt impossible. Conversations that once intimidated you now feel natural. Responsibilities that once overwhelmed you now feel manageable. And this is growth revealing itself quietly. You will understand that confidence is not loud. It does not need to announce itself. It does not need to prove its worth. It simply exists, rooted in experience, strengthened by resilience, and that kind of confidence is unshakable. There will be moments when you pause and reflect on how close you came to giving up, how many times you stood at a crossroads unsure which direction to take, and gratitude will wash over you, not just for where you are, but for what you survived. God saw the moments when you kept your integrity. Even when nobody would have known if you compromised, he saw the moments when you chose honesty over advantage, when you chose patience over pressure, when you chose growth over comfort. And those choices are now speaking on your behalf. As you step into spaces with greater influence, you will feel a responsibility to lead differently, to operate with compassion, to remain grounded, to remember that success is not measured by visibility, but by impact, not by applause, but by alignment. You will become more intentional with your words, aware that what you say carries weight, that encouragement can shift someone's trajectory, that wisdom can prevent unnecessary struggle, and you will use this awareness with care. There will be times when silence will be more powerful than explanation, when restraint will speak louder than reaction, and you will trust that truth does not need defending when it is lived consistently. You will also recognize when rest is necessary, not as an escape, but as a strategy, because sustainability matters and burnout serves no one, least of all the purpose you are walking into. God is teaching you that rest is not a reward for finishing. It is a requirement for continuing. And honoring rest will allow you to remain clear, present, and effective. You will begin to experience moments of confirmation that feel undeniable, not dramatic, but deeply settling. Moments where you know without question that you are exactly where you are meant to be, doing exactly what you were meant to do in that moment. These confirmations will strengthen your resolve during challenging days, reminding you that difficulty does not mean misalignment. It often means expansion. You will also become more comfortable with not knowing everything, with allowing the next step to reveal itself in time, because you have learned that clarity often follows movement, not the other way around. As the blessing continues to unfold, you will notice that it brings both opportunity and pruning, additions and removals, and you will no longer resist the pruning, because you understand that not everything that leaves is a loss. Some things leave to make room. You will feel a deeper sense of purpose in the mundane moments, understanding that consistency in small things sustains success in larger ones, and you will honor the process even when the results are not immediately visible. People may ask how you stayed steady for so long, how you kept believing when nothing seemed to change, and you may not have a polished answer. Only the truth that something inside you refused to quit, and that truth will resonate more than any explanation. You will become aware that your journey is quietly giving others permission to keep going, even if you never speak about it publicly, because perseverance has a way of inspiring without announcement. There will be moments when you are tempted to look back, to question decisions, to wonder what might have been if you had chosen differently, but you will gently redirect your focus forward, knowing that growth lives ahead, not behind. God is not finished, revealing what he has prepared. Layers of purpose will continue to unfold. Responsibilities will evolve, opportunities will shift, and you will grow with them, not by striving, but by staying aligned. You will find that gratitude anchors you in every season, keeping you aware of how far you have come while remaining open to where you are going. As your influence expands, so will your need for discernment, and you will rely less on external noise and more on inner clarity, trusting the wisdom that has been cultivated within you. You will no longer rush to be understood. You will prioritize being aligned, because alignment produces fruit that explanation never could. There will be days when progress feels subtle, when momentum seems quiet, but you will trust that steady movement is still movement, and that consistency compounds over time. You are learning that success is not a single moment, but a series of faithful choices, made repeatedly, often unnoticed, and that understanding will keep you grounded as you continue. God saw everything you did when it felt unseen, and as the path continues to open, you will recognize that this unfolding is not about reaching a destination, but about becoming someone capable of stewarding what comes next. And you will keep walking with awareness, humility, and faith, as each step reveals another layer of what is ahead. And the journey continues without closure, but with ongoing purpose and unfolding direction as you remain present in the movement forward. Chosen one, as this chapter comes into focus, remember this truth and carry it with you into every step ahead. God did not bring you this far to abandon the work he started in you. Every tear had purpose, every delay had intention, every closed door was protection, and every quiet act of obedience was building a future you could not yet see. What is unfolding now is not luck, not coincidence, not sudden favor, but the natural response of heaven to a life that chose faith when doubt was easier, integrity when compromise was tempting, and perseverance when quitting felt justified. Walk forward without fear, without shrinking, without apology for who you have become. Stay humble, stay grateful, stay aligned, because the blessing arriving is not just a reward for what you endured, it is an assignment for what you are now equipped to carry. God saw everything you did. He remembers every step. And as you move forward from here, let your confidence rest not in what you can control, but in the certainty that the same God who sustained you in the waiting will guide you in the fulfillment. And this is only the beginning of what obedience is about to release through your life.